So Alexis is a female INTJ in the MBTI community. And I had subscribed, I saw her stuff, I put it on the watch later list. I was like, I'm going to get to this. And I always like what I consider newer people to myself, because I really think that it's important to see not just every perspective on the types, but also like various INTJ perspectives on how they see the types. And the video that she did that really confirmed I needed to interview her was the most recent ISTJ video. It's probably 2 or 3 videos ago, because my wife's an ISTJ, and I was like, let's see what she knows, and she nailed it. And there are some personalities that conceptually understand type, they could talk about it, but they don't know them. So you're like, oh, that's just like she understands the literature around ISTJs, but Alexis actually knew it. So I was like, all right, I really want to talk to her. So also, if you guys have noticed, her thumbnail game is just great. Thumbnails are excellent. I was like, I have to click, that's what you want. So great job there. So Alexis, thanks for joining me.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me. I'm excited.
So you talk about getting things done, motivation, how to structure your day. A lot of your videos aren't just about the types. It's like also just like how to set up a system for yourself. So specific to the INTJ, I want to talk about I've experienced these cycles of lack of motivation. So I want to know how you deal with lack of motivation as an INTJ, and then how other INTJs can kind of get out of that negative cycle and get motivated again.
So I feel like I've noticed a cycle within myself where I am extremely productive for 3 weeks. So like on my YouTube channel, you'll see like 3-4 videos coming out per week for 3 weeks. And then I just hit a crash. And I think what that is not using TE, extroverted thinking, in a sustainable way. I think sometimes with TE and FI, I can go in bursts with them. So I try really consciously to work on TE for a while. And then after a little bit of doing that, it's like introversion creeps back up on me. And it's like, nope, you're not going to do that. We're going to actually get in a loop. And I will tend to then, for that next week, get into introverted feeling. The first couple days, I'm just kind of SE exhausted, I would say. So there's like, I've literally just exhausted myself from all the physical work. And then after 2 or 3 days of falling off the train, I feel like ashamed. I'm like, oh, I'm not being productive. And FI will really start whispering at me like, you need to be more productive. And that really is just the nail in the coffin that can make it go on for what would have been maybe a 2-day break turns into maybe a 2-week break. I've on YouTube even taken a 2-month break where I'm just sitting there trying to force myself to get back into it. And if I couple TE and SE together, I can get stuff done, but I have to be very motivated and disciplined to get myself to do that. And so I think part of it is just from overusing TE and SE for those few weeks and just pushing myself too hard. Like I want to stretch myself, but I think, there are boundaries, and you want to do some things that are in the appropriate level of difficulty.
Okay. So are you an advocate for like accepting that you're burnt out and then just taking as much time as you need or feel? Or is it more like, don't let yourself get burnt out, because then you're going to go on this massive like 2-month gap of feeling bad about yourself and then feeling guilty? Or what's the strategy?
Yeah, I think the strategy is probably moderation. And, what I've done in the past is I have just like, I'll just let myself mope, I guess. For me, FI can be a lot of moping, and I have just let myself completely tank. And after doing that enough times, I think after doing YouTube for about a year now, I think I'm at the point where I'm like, okay, I need to, this is what's going to happen. We see the pattern repeating itself with this exhaustion. And so we're not going to do this anymore. But yeah, I would just say that for me, it's doing things in moderation and I'm trying to work on setting up better TE systems, because sometimes for the first week, I'll set a system in place. And then the next week I'll say, okay, well, that was that week of YouTube content batching. How can we make it better? So the next week I'll make it better and add in more details. The third week I'll add even more details. And it's like this FI perfectionism ideal standard. And what I was doing week 1, I could sustain. But because I keep with my introverted processes kind of perfecting it, it just is like, I try to convince myself done's better than perfect, but if I keep perfecting it, it won't get done.
Okay. So you do I think you said content batching. So you'll crank out a certain amount of content in a very specific amount of time and then release it.
Yeah. So
That's smart. That's good.
Yeah. So I'll film like 3 videos in one day. And then over the next 3 days, I edit each of those.
So what do you want people to get from your channel? Like, what's the goal, if you can tell people?
2 years ago, I got a breast lump, and it took them like 6 months to figure out what it was. And they were like, "Oh, you're so young, don't worry about it." And then they'd be like, "Oh shoot, that looks really bad." And I'd have another appointment. They're like, "Oh, you're young, don't worry about it." And then they're like, "Oh shoot." And so it was just kind of a series of these kind of like disappointing appointments. And then it turned out to all be fine. Like there was no issue. It was fine. It was like some scar tissue, random stuff, but it's significant. It's pretty large. And it's like, I don't know, you can't know if you can see, but it's pretty big. So from that experience, and then with COVID piggybacking, that was like 3 months later, COVID happened. And just with all that, I decided that I don't want to do something that I don't love. I was teaching math at the time, and I enjoyed math, but I didn't enjoy teaching. And I kind of decided that I don't want anyone else to be making that mistake. I don't want anyone else to be in a career that they don't love. And I'm very career oriented, but just in general, I want people to do what they're passionate about and just pick the one thing and do it, because I was kind of banking on 83 years and, you know, you might not have it. And so I want people to understand what their strengths are and be able to manage their weaknesses and have the bravery to go out there. I'm pretty passionate about introverts specifically. I think sometimes they don't have enough courage to get out there and do the thing. But I just think when you have introverts who spend a lot of time alone getting clarity about things, if they could just get out there and get out of their comfort zone, they would have like really big impact. And I'm passionate about, you know, extroverts doing the same thing, but because I'm an introvert, I'm really passionate about, you know, introverts being bold. And so I did some personality content originally on my channel. Then I did some general personal development content. So my plan is to right now niche down and have a very specific niche and then ride that for a year or two longer. And I don't think I'll ever stop doing personality content, but I really would like to get into the more general stuff that you need to be a bigger content creator for it to do well.
Yeah, I agree. It's interesting when people in the community get really niche in terms of like how your trickster function manifests as an ISFP. I'm like, yeah, that's good. I mean, but that's why you would get like 900 views, is because it's like, I mean, that's not exactly a topic we're all searching for, but there is so much of that out there. So it's like, how popular can you get in personality? I mean, there's a couple of examples of some pretty popular people, but yeah, I guess personal development, personality type, there might be like a real chance to blow up there, possibly.
Yeah, I think with personality or with any niche in general, it's important to market toward beginners. When you look at the people like Frank James, people doing well in the personality space, they marketed toward beginners. And the people that cap out at like 5,000 subscribers are the ones who are talking about like maybe the bottom 4 functions and very niche stuff. So even cognitive functions is really putting a cap on what you can do. But then there's Love who I think is about 100,000 subscribers. So
he's great. Yeah, he's figured out like the perfect blend of not getting too in depth, but still like being relatable. And I think Dear Kristen's a good example of someone that's coming up that's like very skit oriented, clearly knows the cognitive functions, clearly knows how, but like not talking about them too much where you lose the beginner. I'm somebody, and I'm sure you're the same way, that once you sort of get into type and really understanding it, there was not a situation where you could not see type. From like, what type is this country, that globally, to like every single niche topic. Oh, that's just like that manifestation. So where does type just not apply, if there's any?
Like in hiring, like is it ethical to hire people based on type? So that's one. I mean, that's one area that I don't have my like fully formed thoughts on. I would say it's debatable, but I can't think of any. I'm sure that there are areas where type does not apply. I can't think of anything off the top of my head.
Maybe like, I'm not even trying to preface or prompt you, but like mental illness in type, can we go like autism in type? Is that totally outside of where you can't, there's no type, you can't type somebody even using like an EEG machine if they have some sort of mental illness or some neurodivergent, maybe.
You know, I think if people are heavily medicated, that would make it very difficult for the outside observer to type.
I see.
Maybe, I don't even know. I mean, maybe there are some people that have extremely low IQs. I don't know how much of that is just brain damage and if that would affect things. I'm kind of unclear how much I think is like nature versus nurture. Like, are you just born with this type? Does it not develop till you're 10, 15?
Mm-hmm.
You know, I'm kind of unclear about, you know, the nature versus nurture part. So I think that would affect the way I would answer.
Okay. And I guess the fact that, and maybe you'll think of an answer later and do a video on it or something, but I think the fact that it wasn't apparently clear to me is sort of like, it's everywhere. It like pervades in all sort of interactions you have and all sort of entertainment, people you deal with. It's like, oh, that's that. It's like, wow, it's everywhere, I guess. And it may not be, you may not be able to apply other systems the way.
I mean, there are lots of places I see it. Like, I even think of it with branding. You know, I look at like, this company's branding is very TE.
Oh,
this company's branding, or I'll go to churches and I'm like, this is a very FI church. This is a very FE church or an SI.
Love it.
I mean, and so I look at organizations all the time.
Well, FE is the most easiest, is what everyone's doing for marketing now. FE
oh, do you think so? Really?
When I was talking to Gabe at Rational Typology, he was like, politics and marketing is all FE. Like if you have FE high up, it's very easy to be successful as a person. And then just like either personal marketing, personal branding, we're all in this together is a very popular, like across the world as a company. If you can add that to your image, it's easy to win. As an INTJ, like what do you look for? And I guess we can break into two categories, be like friendships and then like romance, spouse, long-term partner. Or maybe they're the same thing.
Yeah, I think I definitely have like a type. If you think about like a personality type and like what I look for, like I think in relationships, I just love NPs. Any of the NPs, I really enjoy. Any of the NE users. You know, there are different things that I like for. Like I find ENTPs really charming and charismatic.
I love them. Yes. Oh,
I find INTPs really fun to have conversations with. I feel like it's similar to an ENTP, but you can get deeper on it. They're a little less charismatic, but I feel like you can get deeper on things. I like INFPs. I like IFPs actually just a lot. Like I would marry an INFP. I'd marry an INFP and have an ESFP best friend. Wait, did I misspeak? I would marry an INFP.
No. And have an ESFP best friend.
No, not an ESFP best friend. I didn't. Oh. Yeah, no, I'd marry an INFP and have an ENTP best friend.
I totally see that. Yes. Yeah.
I feel like the thing, I almost put ENTPs as my favorite type, except for I don't trust them a lot of the time. It's very hard for me to find an ENTP that I trust. Even if they're, you know, a great person, I still just have a hard time trusting them. Yeah, I kind of feel like when I look around at married couples and I'm typing them, the most common, there's not as common trends. Maybe the most common pattern that I see is it'll be two people that have the same judging function axis, but reversed. So you'll have like a TI user with an FE user. And then so they'll have the same judging axis, and then their perceiving axis will be different. So one's got like SE and one has SI. So I see like ISFJs and ESTPs a lot, or just SFJs with STPs in general.
Okay.
So I feel like, so for INTJs, that makes sense. So like we've got TE, so I would like someone with the FI. And then if you take the different judging axis, or I mean the different perceiving axis, for me that's NI, so for them that'd be NE. So that's where you get like liking ENFPs and INFPs.
Oh, okay.
And I noticed that pattern more strongly for some reason with FE and TI users. Like I find FPs, or I notice FPs in a relationship with a lot of different people, but FJs and TPs is a very common pairing. There's a more strong pattern.
Interesting. There. So my wife's an ISTJ, I'm INTJ. I actually, believe it or not, have not looked into the romantic types that much in terms of like how they get along. So in your professional opinion, does that, just if you didn't know that and you just said, oh, these two people are dating, and you said like, oh, how is the date going to go? Would you say going to go terribly, or it's like, that could be interesting? What would you say?
I mean, it could be interesting. I have some ISTJ friends. I mean, on the negative side, I would say it could be boring. Like worst case scenario, it's boring and you're quiet, especially on a first date. I think that SJs, in my opinion, get better as the years go on. So if you've known them for 40 years, I think SJs get better with time. But as far as the first date, you got an introvert with another introvert, both IJs, which are some of the most introverted. So yeah, I would say boring. But eventually I would think that you could get very deep conversations.
Okay.
It'd be a very productive relationship. It'd be a very utilitarian relationship. Like,
Oh.
get things done maybe, but
Oh yeah. Okay.
it might be lacking fun.
That could be, yeah, I could see that. And I think like the perception would be like, you guys like, what are you doing? They're like, my first date was, I took her, well, the first half of the date was at a bookstore.
That's great.
But that was like a test because I wanted to see like if she would be cool with me and my natural element, which is a bookstore, or if she's going to be like, ew, this is boring, like books. But she wasn't. So I was like, all right, a little win there. Then a music store after that. So I was like, okay, we're doing okay.
What kind of books do you like?
I like political and political nonfiction. I used to read a lot of like horror books, but now I sprinkle it in just to stay just for fun. Fiction is so easy to read. Like you can crank through that. Nonfiction is just I like having as much information as possible because you just never know when you're going to need it. You never know.
Yeah, I almost exclusively read nonfiction. It's so interesting that you say you can crank through fiction. I do not crank through fiction. I crank through nonfiction. I just pile through nonfiction.
That's so cool. Like what? Like
business books. Like what do I have on my shelf? Fix This Next. When, Thinking Fast and Slow.
Okay.
The Art of Logic. It's a lot of personal development books. It's like personal development and business books.
Such a great topic. And I think the thing that is tough, I think I may have said this before to you in pre-show or something like that, but it's written by TE users, I think.
Right. Like, yeah, tons of business books.
90%.
TE books. So, yes. So I feel like with me wanting to develop TE, the first place I went was, well, I was always just like reading personal development books, but then I started consciously like reading business books for personal development. And that's the most introverted way you could possibly go about trying to develop TE, but that was like my first step.
What, reading business books?
Yeah.
Totally.
I mean, it was like, in my mind, I was like, yeah, I'm working on TE, but I'm still alone in my house reading a book. Like I could have been out there starting a project, leading people, managing people, getting stuff done, but I was still at home reading a book.
There's this huge gulf, this big divide between like when I had actually like right when I was like probably 20, I'm 31 now, but like 22, 23, I'd asked like a fairly successful business friend of mine, like, what books should I read to kind of understand? He's like, don't read any books, just go out and do it. And for me, I was like, that's horrifying. Like I need to get some background. And so I think you did what INTJs would do is like, I need a conceptual version, maybe read about famous business people and what they did, how they kind of started. But like the people that just go out and do it, that like the ESTP entrepreneur type that like doesn't have the background knowledge, but has like the charisma and the SE dominant personality to do it, tends to get ahead in society, I think.
I mean, the best advice for INTJs is I think to stop with analysis paralysis. Like once I got out of the books, which I haven't gotten out of the books, but I'm out a lot more than I used to. I used to go to Barnes & Noble and read a book a day.
Oh my God.
So, amazing. I mean, I'm doing a lot better than I used to be. I'm now like at a book a week. So I'm doing better.
Guys. I'm doing better. Okay.
So so I think it's just better just for INTJs to like just get out there and actualize your stuff. And it's the quantity leads to quality. And the more quantity you output, the less bad FI feels about a bad product I put out. So if I was only doing like one video a month, I was like, oh, frick. But now if I do 3 videos a week, it's like, that one was bad. It's fine. I'll move on. So it's like easier to get better quality once you've like outputted the quantity for like FI to just kind of like forget it and move on. I think I was gonna say something else. Oh, and another thing, like with my videos. So this is the philosophy that I ascribe to, that you should work on your second function a lot and try to sprinkle in your fourth function, because it's like a teeter-totter. Like I feel like you got 2 introverted functions on the side and your 2 extroverted functions on the side. You want to have it be kind of balanced so that you like the introversion gives you depth and wisdom, the extroversion gives you impact. So you want to have a good balance of input and output. So I feel like introvert intuition is a heavy hitter. Like it weighs a lot on that teeter-totter. And when you're young, I feel like FI also weighs a lot. So if you just try to balance it out with TE, it's like a new thing. And I feel like it's not heavy enough to tip the scale. But if you can sprinkle in a little bit of SE, like I was using SE 2% of the time, and now I'm trying to use it maybe like 15% of the time. And so it's like now it can kind of tip the scale, like TE and SE together tip the scale. So what I'm trying to do with my videos now to work on SE, I've been trying to work on SE for maybe a year and a half. And that's what prompted like the YouTube channel. Probably wouldn't have gotten in my body and said anything before that. But I've tried to not script any of my videos. I used to type out everything. And that was kind of a idea. It's like an FI ideal. It's like, I don't want to forget anything. I need to have everything. It needs to be perfect. But that just made the process so slow. And so now I don't script at all. I've tried to push myself to not script at all. And I come off less robotic.
Yeah, I think advice that I would give too is I've never been disappointed in myself when I embraced SE as a conscious choice, not as like a indulgent, not in the indulgent negative way where you just do things for too long, but in the just do something physical or do the thing that's like giving you anxiety just a little bit, and I promise you won't regret it. And then you never do, and you're like, oh, I should do this more often. But then you have that SI that makes you forget to do stuff, and you're like, I should have done that. I got to remember to do that.
Yeah, I've got a whiteboard in my house. It's like right here. And it's a list of all the things that scare me. And they're usually SE related things. And so I check them off as I go. Like I was scared of flying. I was scared of going to the dentist. Those random SE things that just scare me. And so then I check them off as I do them.
Like I said, I was talking with Gabe, INTJ of Rational Typology, and he says a lot of INTJs are really dumb. And they're not that smart. And he's like, because you can win an argument with your high school friend doesn't mean that you're a mastermind INTJ. You have to work on it just like all the types have to work on it. Like they call ivory tower mindset of oh, I knew that was going to happen, but I'm too afraid to actually do the thing. Predicting other people's failures and things that are going to happen, but without actually ever doing it yourself, SE, then you just feel good about never doing anything because I already knew that was going to fail.
Right.
Do you agree with that?
I feel like, when you go through type, I feel like it's kind of like the Dunning-Kruger effect.
Yes. Oh, I love it.
Yeah. It's like you first learn about type and you're like, wow, my type is the best. INTJs rock. Wow, we're freaking awesome. I'm the best type. We're so rare. We're so smart. We can do anything we want. I mean, it's just like feeding the ego over and over, which the websites do not help.
No.
They will definitely feed the ego for sure. And then FI is right there to be like, oh, I'm special. Yeah, tell me, feed me more. I'm special. And but then at least I got to a point where I was like, wow, I'm really not living up to expectations.
Right.
I'm making no money. Theoretically, INTJs could be a CEO and they could be doing all this great stuff. I'm not doing any of that. There was just a lot of dissonance between the potential and reality. And so I was like, wow, frick, I suck. And so then I eventually started okay, well, let's see if I can work on, the description and the reality. Let's see if we can get those to line up as close as possible.
That's so brilliant. And I think that would be my main thing. If I ever got an INTJ as a coaching client, it'd be it would almost be kind of you're not that great because you're going to have a natural ego because of your intelligence. I don't know of any INTJs who have really bad self-esteem unless there's some sort of nurture issue where they didn't, but I think they're always going to have a little bit of intellectually smarter, but what have you done? If you don't have that, then that TE still matters in the world.
Right. And I think my issue was so growing up in school, I think that just naturally kind of fed the INTJ ego sort of thing because TE can work the system. And I feel like INTJs are one of the types that can succeed in school pretty easily. And then you get out of school and it's oh, people aren't just going to teach me things and I'm not just going to be able to learn in an introverted way. At some point, these extroverted skills come into play. And at school, that wasn't really that necessary, at least in my school. And so it's kind of the real world was oh, knockback. It's okay, if I want to be a mastermind, I have to actually do something. You can find me if you haven't been on my channel before. It's Alexis Kingsley. So at the time you're watching this, I'll probably have a video out on all the types, so you can go check that out.
Oh my God, I'm so excited. Okay, I'll probably put them on watch later, but I will like and comment. And my audience.
Oh, that's so nice. Well, thank you. Thank you. I appreciate it.
Yeah, so Alexis, thanks for sharing your knowledge of being an INTJ with my audience, and I hope we can talk again soon.
Yeah, thanks so much.
I tried to live without you, just can't get you.